There we go. We are live. Awesome. Welcome everybody to our Q&A with Denis Simoneau, our head drone over at school.com/bees. We're going to get started right now with our, not first, but one of our first Q&A here. So just, oh, we got Marcin joining us. I'll throw Marcin up there too. Awesome. So it's just going to be the three guys jump in. Neiman, you just asked an awesome question. We'll throw it back to you guys there to get started.
Sure. So, yeah, about my question, basically, I wanted to find out how beekeepers, on average, manage to evaluate the humidity levels. Which kind of tools are being used to and stuff like that.
So the humidity has a couple of possibilities for tools. One of them is just experience. The biggest thing about honey you have to take into account is the climate you're in.
Okay.
So we're in a northern climate. We're in northern Alberta. We don't worry too much about humidity. We do worry about it, but we don't have huge rainfalls and things like that. We don't live on a coast. I know Paris is not right next to a coast, but it is a lot closer than we are. Mm-hmm. And so the honey, how we assess when the honey is ready to be harvested is when the frame is about 1/3 covered. When the bees seal the honey and it's about 1/3 of it all sealed up, then we'll take it out. And that's when we start to extract it. Now, we do have a refractometer, which measures the humidity level. You put a little drop of honey on a screen, and you aim it at the sunshine, and you look inside, and it tells you what percentage. It's got a gradation scale in it, and it tells you what percentage the honey is at. We try to hit that 17 to 18%. Because that's what the definition of honey is, and that's the best quality honey. I've been to, let's say, for example, Hawaii. I went to Hawaii, and the honey was very liquidy. But Hawaii is in the middle of the ocean. They get lots of rain, lots of humidity all the time. And it's very hard for the bees to dry the honey out to that point. Now, the honey that I bought to try was really good, and don't get me wrong, but I don't call that honey. I call that syrup. Okay. It was more of a syrup, but it was very good. They called it honey, and I put it on my toast every morning before I go cooking, and oh yeah, it was good. But it wasn't dry very much. And you do get that quite frequently in very tropical type areas where they get very high levels of humidity, and they have a hard time getting that desiccated down to what honey would be. As for color, that has not too much to do with humidity. The color has to do with the type of flowers the bees are eating on. I know, as an example, there was a factory that makes orange pop, and they had a leak in one of the pipes where the orange syrup was dripping, and it's a sugar syrup, so the bees were attracted to it. And the orange syrup was just dripping down of this pipe to a puddle, and the bees would lick it up, and they brought it back, and the guys were getting orange honey. Scratching their heads and couldn't figure out why. And then they found out that, it was because these were going to the factory to get this sugar syrup, which is a sugar syrup, just like nectar. And it turned the honey orange. So they're laughing like crazy because they had a unique honey. But it's just syrup.
I heard there was a similar story with blue honey. Yeah, because the bees were like drinking something blue, and I have to go in a while, and I thought I didn't have any questions because I have to go to sleep soon where I'm at. But I just wanted to ask. It's connected to what you're talking about. I just didn't remember the humidity percentage you were talking about. That where when it's at a certain percent, then you personally call it honey and not syrup?
Yeah. I usually define it at about 17 to 18%. 18 being on the high side and 17 being a good average.
That's the humidity level, right? 17% is like
that's
average.
Right.
Because in Poland, I've been buying honey that is more they have two names for it. I don't remember the names, and it's in Polish, so it doesn't matter anyways. But they have the type of honey where it's more kind of stable. It's more like it's not liquidy at all actually.
Okay.
It's more like Nutella, that consistency.
Yeah.
Or even more, like depending on the type of honey. And then they have the liquidy stuff. So the liquidy stuff, you're saying that's and I learned about that a little on our last call, but I just wanted to go deeper into that. So when it goes above 17%, it's when that it becomes more liquidy, and then you have like less honey in honey. Is that it?
Yeah, we make the creamed honey. Is what that. So you're taking liquid honey and honey that's already granulated. Now, the drier it is, the quicker the crystals will be to form. So I don't know. I've never measured a creamed honey. I should go and take my refractometer and measure what a creamed honey would measure at to get a good understanding. I've never measured that one. But yeah, usually that would be a little bit drier. I've seen honey. I had a friend of mine. He was in the industry for 50 years. He just retired recently. And he had a barrel of honey that he got so dry, it became almost like sugar powder. Just like as if you scoop out of your coffee mug. It was really funny. He called me up and said, "Hey, come look at this." And he had a tunnel right down the middle of the barrel and picking at it. And yeah, it was just little crystals of sugar, just like sugar that you get for your coffee and stuff like that. And that had to have been like 12, 15% really dry compared to what usually is a liquid.
Okay.
Nectars don't fast, so they must be a lot more watery compared to other nectars.
But what do you mean by nectars? Because I've heard that name before. Like, what do you mean by when you say nectar?
Yeah, so nectar, what the plants feed the bees. So when they go out to lick the flower, they lick the nectar out of the flower. They bring that back to the hive, put it in cells, then they wave their wings over it to dry it until it gets to whatever level you want it at. Usually they want to preserve it as long as possible. So that's the process that actually goes and exchanges the nectar into honey.
Okay.
Right. So nectar is your base model. Honey is your finished product. That's what the bees are doing, and that's why they're so good at it, because they take a little energy compared to what it was to work. But there's some nectars that take more energy and things like that.
Okay, because I think I see like in when I Google, like I think in Poland they call the more liquidy honey, they call it nectar honey. And then the name for the more dry honey is just a different name. I can't even, it wouldn't make sense if I said it.
Kind of, that kind of does make sense. I mean, if I was to go in the middle of July and the flowers were all flowing and I would get some honey and I would pull it out before they had get to the honey stage, I would be tempted to call it nectar honey. But the problem is with water, one of the things with honey and with anything sugar in water, it starts to alcoholize. So that's why the bees dry. They don't want to be eating alcohol in the middle of winter when they're saving up this honey. They want to eat the honey. So they dry it, desiccate it down to a certain level to make sure it preserves for a long time before it becomes alcohol. We make something called mead, where you put a kilogram of honey in a big car body. I think they're 40 years. I don't know. I haven't tried that one. And then we add yeast to it and things like that, and we make different meads.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's why you got to be careful. If one of the reasons why we don't take the honey off before that 1/3 coverage and that 17-18% is because we don't want it have a tendency to try and alcoholize too much, too fast. So it sounds to me like nectar honey, which would sounds like maybe 20, 25, 30% liquid. I don't know. I'd have to do the research. And I would imagine it would probably not preserve as long as what honey can do. But I mean, if you're eating within a month, you're going to be okay.
Okay. I see. I read, like, I think the difference is, I think I was wrong. I think nectar type honey means basically honey from the, like what you said, from the nectar of the flowers. And the other type of honey is, it's from something else. It's not from, it's from like trees also somehow. Is it possible?
Oh, okay. You might be talking about propolis then, because the bees collect propolis from the trees, which has antibacterial, antiviral, and preservative kind of properties. They spread that all over the hive to help control diseases. But that's not nectar, that's propolis.
Yeah, it says
nectar comes from flowers.
When I try to translate it, it says honeydew honey. It doesn't feel it makes sense, the translation. But it says that it's like from, like they still make the honey, but it's like from trees or something. Or
well, if the tree flowers in some way, then you would honey, you would get nectar from it, which could be, like I said, the bees dry it down to honey stage. But yeah, I mean, I've never heard of anybody getting. Mind you, like I said, in northern Alberta, we're not exactly in a tropical place where trees flower so long and so much. It's one of the reasons why I use the honeybees up here, is because there's very short seasons. So they really have to work hard very fast in the time period they have to get as much honey as they can. And that honey comes from the nectar.
Okay.
So if you've got I know down in Lower Mainland BC, where they have a lot of orchards, you get apple trees. They got a nice white flower, and they got to give off a nice nectar. But usually the bees, see, one of the nice things about the bees is when they decide to go to a certain type of flower, they go to it religiously until it's used up in that area or it stops. And apple trees generally bloom a certain part of the season where everything else is blooming right? So when we go put bee pollination, for example, in blueberries, there's a tree that is blooming a little bit, but the blueberries are so many of them, the bees mostly go to the blueberries. They go to the other tree. I can't think of the name right now off the top of my head. So much so in a barrel, a 55-gallon drum barrel, you might get 1 gallon of this tree honey, which is from the flowers that are on that tree, and you'll get 54 gallons of blueberry honey because the bees go to the blueberry crazy. That's one of the nice things of them that we can understand, is that when they decide to go somewhere, they go to that flower. In summertime, they have very many choices, but they still stay on that one flower they choose for a day or two until they've used up the resource and then go on to another one. And it's a little bit complicated on that part. But nectar, so nectar is your base model, it's like putting water into your pot and you turn your pot on, and the stove heat brings it down to a small boil, and eventually you get rid of it. Just like that's how they make salt from the ocean. They take a whole bunch of water, they heat it up until all that's left behind is the salt. Bees are doing the same thing. They take nectar from the flower, the tree, the flower, the grass, whatever, and then they bring it to the hive as a nectar. And then when they put it in the cells, they start drying it until it becomes about 17 to 18% humidity. by volume.
All right, thank you a lot. I have to go. It's really late now in Poland, but I appreciate the information, and hopefully I'll see you around.
Good
Bye,
night.
Denis. Bye.
Hopefully it
Bye,
made
man.
sense.
Yes, for sure. Thank you again. Bye.
All right.
Take care. Well, I've
So
got.
you got that night?
Yeah. It was pretty clear. I've got a couple questions from your point of view. What's the most, let's say, annoying task as a beekeeper?
Oh boy. I don't find any of the tasks annoying because I really enjoy going in the bees. I actually, in the middle of winter when they're all in bed, I miss them. The only annoying thing is the stinging.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right? Because as you can tell by my gray in my beard, I'm a little bit older. So lifting up everything and doing all the manual labor is starting to get annoying, but I still enjoy all the time I can spend in the bees. The most annoying thing is just the stinging.
Does that happen often, or is it rare? A rare occurrence?
It's really, I rarely get stung, really, actually. It's really up to you. If the bees are very reactive to a couple of things. They're very reactive to pheromones.
Okay.
And they're very reactive to rough treatment.
Oh. Yeah.
So if you can say, the way I put it to kids is our fear hormone. When we exude fear, the bees smell that and become alarmed. And when they become alarmed, they can actually start stinging more. So if you can keep yourself calm, they'll stay calm for the most part. And the other thing is the rough treatment. If you lift the box up and then slam it down, right, you get angry too. So I don't get stung all that often, really, most of the season. The only time I really get stung is in robbing season in the late fall when all the flowers are dying and the bees are desperate for honey. They'll actually get more aggressive and sting more often. So I get stung a few times. When I was younger, I remember one time I got stung 110 times in one day. But that was because we were rough. We had to hurry and get all the boxes off so we could bring them into the extractor room to get them all done. And we were young and stupid and didn't slow down.
I see.
Right? So, yeah, if you can keep your... even to this day, there are times when I go out in the bee yard and all of a sudden, as you get older, I'm noticing your fear pheromones kick in automatically because as an old man, they just do. And there's times where I have to just put the tools down and walk away and calm down. And then I come back and go back to work. As long as you keep the bees calm and don't do anything stupid, usually I get stung on the end of the fingertips because I don't look where I'm putting my fingers and I squish a bee. Right? So as long as you stay calm and don't do anything that could really rile up the bees, they don't sting very often.
I see.
Yeah.
And what got you into beekeeping, basically? How did you get started?
My reason why I got started was because I'm a 7th generation beekeeper. It's been in my family for hundreds of years. One of my grandfathers was one of the first beekeepers to move bees from Quebec up to northern Alberta way back when the big settling of this area started happening. We've got books from grandfathers of grandfathers from all the way back almost to the original ancestor who moved from Europe over to Canada. And yeah, I grew up with it. I can remember going to my uncle and my grandmother's house, my grandfather's house for Christmas. And one of the things we always did every year was take a tour of the bee up and see how the summer went and see how everything went and how did you build boxes. Oh yeah, you taught business and everything, and I've been at it. I say that I started working in the bee when I was 12. My first summer job I ever had was for my uncle for 2 weeks in the bees. I was living in Edmonton area, and asked my parents, and they sent me up here for 2 weeks to live with one grandparent while I went to work on an uncle's bee farm. And then every summer after school was done, I was working on the bee farm. And it's my blood. It's just the way it is. I've never thought I've had to go other places for work and stuff like that, but I've always been a beekeeper.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And how when it comes to royal jelly, what's your process to gather it? Royal jelly. I don't know if you.
I don't. Royal jelly is something I don't go and harvest. I know generally how it's done because there's always royal jelly around. Royal jelly is fed to the eggs for 3 days, and then they start feeding them honey and pollen, and that's for the bees. And if they pick an egg and decide that egg is going to be a queen, they feed it only royal jelly. It never has anything else until it's hatched and born. So, yeah, there's royal jelly always around. I've thought about going into production. The thing with royal jelly is it's made by very young bees. So I can't remember the exact number of days old they are when they start producing, but roughly a week or so into their life. And they have 3 glands on their forehead where the royal jelly is created. And when they want to make a new queen, they make all the royal jelly, put it into the cell, and then that egg that's in that cell becomes a queen. So you have to have a lot of very young bees. You have to have a lot of cells for them to put a lot of royal jelly in. And then how they harvest it is they suck the royal jelly out of the cells and then they put it in a jar. And it's a time-consuming process because you got to remember the cells are really small and they got to stick a pipette in there, suck the royal jelly out, and then conglomerate it and go on from there to put it in jars or pills or however they do with it.
So it's made manually. You can't have a machine picking. No, okay.
I don't know of anybody in the world. I haven't heard of anything in the world where they tried to do it artificially. I have heard that Israel has a bunch of scientists who are trying to do stuff for the bees artificially, but I haven't heard of them doing royal jelly. So I don't know that anybody's trying. It's a very unique set of glands on the forehead, and it's a very unique product because it actually differentiates the egg on whether it becomes a worker, a drone, or a queen. And if they only feed the egg for 3 days royal jelly, and then they stop, that bee either becomes a worker or a drone. But if they feed only royal jelly to that egg, it becomes a queen, which is a very different type of bee. So that's why it's a very unique product. And my father, I haven't used royal jelly too much, but my father used to take royal jelly capsules all the time. So I know there are people who are producing. I see them all over the place. I've just never gone into it because you've got to keep your beehives very young. And I've always been more into honey production.
Okay.
And that requires bees that are foragers. And this is something to study. They only go into foraging when they hit roughly about 30 days old. So in the summertime, the bees will live about 30 to 45 days, maybe 50 days if they're very old. And that 30 to 45 days is roughly where they start collecting honey. Everything before that, up to 0 to 30 days, is they usually do chores within the hive. So cleaning the hive, taking care of the queen, making royal jelly, making wax, all the work gets done by the worker bees inside the hive. When they get old enough, they start going into guarding the hive. So they'll go out to the entrance and just sit there and guard the hive from anybody coming in. And they get more comfortable going outside of the hive. Once they get comfortable enough to go outside the hive at roughly 30 days old, then they start flying out to go collect water, propolis, and honey.
Okay.
And that's when they usually die. Bees don't usually die in the hive because it's a very safe environment compared to the outside. But once they start going outside, everything tries to eat them. You got spiders, birds. Every car tries to hit them if they're driving by the bee yard.
Sure.
And you got to remember, they're very tiny little insects, so they're not hard to kill. And if you want to collect honey, it's not one flower that gives you a lot of honey. It's a lot of flowers that give you a little bit of honey. And so you have to have a lot of bees to go and collect that honey. So in the spring, I have 10,000 bees inside the hive. Those ones are just going to survive for a month or two, and they're going to start laying eggs and more and more. She's going to build up the population to where you get anywhere between 40 and 100,000, maybe 110 or 120,000 bees in a hive. Well, the 10,000 are roughly all the ones that are going to stay inside. There's always that little core group that kind of stays inside, and it rotates. They rotate through that as they get older. So in the middle of summer, roughly the end of June, I've got about 50,000 bees in my hive. 40,000 of them are going out that day to go and collect honey. And the other 10,000 who are still young are inside helping do all stuff. And that's why we get such nice large crops. But yeah, it's a numbers game. Right. And we always aim for that 50,000 plus starting roughly mid-June in this area. Okay. In warmer climates, they do it a little bit earlier. In colder climates, I know if you go even further north, say to Alaska, they only got like a month of nectar flow.
They've got honey in Alaska.
Yeah, they've got a shorter time period to work in, which means that you have to have a larger population build up in a faster time, and then have that population decrease in fall after the flyers are done even faster, so that they get a core group that survives the winter. It's one of the nice things about bees is you get actually two different types of bees, and they've done studies on this. The summer bees will live 45 days roughly. Winter bees can live 6 months. So the queen is a little bit of a different bee, which has more fat bodies in the body to survive longer periods of time.
I see. Let's say that you've got a hive during winter. I assume that there will be a fair amount of the population that will die, probably because they can't go outside to gather food and stuff like that. So what happens during spring? So do you have, as a beekeeper, to tidy up the hive, or do the bees take the dead bodies outside? What's happening?
Bees don't like to die inside the beehive.
Okay.
And when they know they're going to die, they leave the beehive. That said, some don't make it. They die in the beehive. So they try to clean them up and keep them clean. They try to keep the beehive. It's actually a very clean environment in general. You always got some dead bee bodies left over and stuff in little corners and things. But generally speaking, the bees don't like to die in the beehive. In the spring, we go through all the bees, all the hives, and help to clean it up. They can get a quicker start into the summer. That way, you know, like for our environment, for our climate, roughly around mid-April, I'll go through every bee yard, every beehive, everywhere, taking all the lids off, scraping all the bottom boards, just getting them cleaned up as much as we can help so that they can start by going from cleaning everything to getting the eggs ready and helping to get the nest ready, all that stuff, so they can ramp up faster when the weather changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I have another question. So when it comes to the beekeeper community, do you organize exchange of bees, of I don't know, pollen? I mean, what do you do when you meet another beekeeper, basically?
Well, what I did was, of course, I grew up, so I knew all the beekeepers in the local area. Because I'm basically close to home here. What I did when I wanted to start a full form business is I started I found out where they had, like, beekeepers clubs, beekeeper meetings. I found where the professional association meets and how they'll go there. Things like that. I found a place where I could buy books and read. Because I'd been out of the industry for a little bit of time. I wanted to make sure that I was up to date on all the diseases, anything that has changed, and what's the new technologies. And, you know, so what I would recommend is just look around, and I'm sure there's a beekeepers club close to you.
Okay.
Find the in my case, we call it the provincial apiculture group of people. It's called the Beekeepers Association. I'm sure Paris is the same thing. Do you have states there or provinces in France?
We call it département, so I don't know
Okay.
what's the equivalent in English, but you could say that's tiny regions, basically.
Yeah. So talk to big piece of advice I would give anybody who's thinking about starting, even if it's just a hobby, you still should find who the government has as their representative who regulates the body of apiculture.
Okay.
The body of areas, the body of bees. In Alberta, we have to register with the government anytime we own our bee equipment, because they want to monitor and make sure that nobody has American foul brood, which is a very virulent and very bad disease. So they want to monitor that to make sure none of that is contaminating anybody else's beekeeping equipment and bees. So you have to register if you even own it. Find out who that is. I'm sure in France they have something similar, because, like I said, American foul brood is a very bad, very virulent disease, and they want to make sure and control it. And there's a lot of other things. So that would be my first call would be to call them, find out who they are, call the government, say who takes care of the bees. And when you're talking to that person, ask, hey, I'm sure they know who all local beekeepers are, if not in person name, but they know where the beekeepers meet. They know who to talk to. They'll say, go see John Doe. He's in charge of this beekeeper's your area. And then you can call that guy and say, hey, I'm interested in having some bees and I'm in your area. Can you tell me when there's another? Because beekeepers, I don't know if you've noticed, we like to talk.
Okay.
And we like to have social gatherings. So, yeah, we meet and talk all the time. The only caution for that one, and this is really funny because I noticed this way back when, but I didn't kick in and realize exactly all it meant until I started attending these meetings. You're going to go into a room with 100 beekeepers, and they're going to be 150 opinions.
Oh, okay.
They're all going to be very knowledgeable. They're going to know exactly and give you recommendations, and it's going to be confusing because one guy will say, well, if you do this, do that, you'll be okay. And the other guy will say, if you do this and you do that, you'll be okay. And you'll be looking there, oh, which one do I do? Because they're not going to seem the same. And the choice to distill it down to where you be comfortable with what you're doing.
I see.
Right?
And
But it's very interesting conversations, and it can be very challenging in its own way.
Definitely
Worth getting to know somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for now, I'm not looking very actively into it because I've got other stuff going on. But yeah, at a later point in my life, I figured that I would have to, how to say that, to get closer to nature, stuff like that. So I figured that beekeeping would be the safest way to connect with nature, basically, because I don't
You're
feel
very connected.
Mm.
Like I said earlier, the bees are very easy to kill. So you're very connected. After a while of experience, a couple of years experience, you will be much closer to nature.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be looking up at the clouds going, well, it looks like it's going to rain today. And, you'll know where your honey is coming from. And then you'll start to branch out from that. I grew up on a multi-purpose farm, and we always had a few bees around. And then, of course, the family had thousands of beehives around. We had everything. Like we woke up in the morning and we'd look outside and, okay, we can't go out to the bees, so let's go feed cows or the chicken or whatever. Yes, you do become... I do recommend that if you're just getting started, take a year before you buy your first beehives and buy your first bees.
Okay.
Read a lot. Okay. And get to know. Find yourself a mentor. Find someone closer to you. I can't mentor you too well from here.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. But when you go to, once you find out where one of these meetings are and you go there, find someone and work with the guy. Hey, if I come to work for you, give you some back work and give you some full work to help you do stuff, would you teach me and let me see how things are done? And a lot of guys will say, yeah, no problem. I mean, it's expensive to hire somebody to do stuff. If I've got someone who's willing to do it for free in return for learning, it can be a worthwhile investment on their part. I don't know what it's like in France, but here a lot of the beekeepers are like myself. We're getting older, so we're starting to look around and trying to find a younger guy like yourself who might want to buy our operation out. So that's another opportunity. If you are interested and you try it and you like it, you might find someone who's going to say, hey, I'm going to retire within the next 5 years. How about you work for me? So you're going to get paid. And when it comes time and I'm done, you buy my bees. Right? So there's another possibility. Or you say, hey, I want to do it myself. And that's fine too. But don't jump into it. I had one lady, her son wanted to do it, and she bought him the bees. She was very too quick about it. She bought him bees right in the first year when he said, oh, I want to have bees. And I've talked to him since. He's become a very hardworking young man, but he didn't stay in the bees. He did it for 1 year, and that was it. And hives all died the next winter, and it was unfortunate because he could have come to work for me excuse me, very easily, and I would have shown him everything. And then he could have said, oh, I don't want to do bees anymore. Okay. And I would have saved her probably about $5,000 to $10,000 of investment.
Wow.
because
Okay.
she bought everything. It was yeah. But yeah, take a year. Find yourself a lot of good books.
Mhm.
Come on these live streams, ask questions, and then yeah, attend those meetings. And someone you can talk to, and the only piece of equipment I would buy would be a veil.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even buy a suit. I would just find something to put over my head, and then that way, if the guy says "come on out," you just put it on your head and you come and take a look.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how do you know if you're allergic or not to
They
the
can
stinging?
they can test you.
Oh, okay.
I used to be a paramedic, so I know about this. They can
Mhm.
test you for allergy. Most people find out when they get stung, which is not a good time, because if you are allergic, you're taking a big chance there, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I usually recommend is here in Alberta, we can go to the emergency room with a bee and say, hey, just in case, we're here now. You are not taking any legal responsibility, but this person is going to test themselves to see if they're allergic to bees. So you sting yourself and then you pull the stinger out right away. So you're not
Mhm.
getting a huge dose. And then you sit there in the emergency room waiting to see what kind of reaction you have.
Okay.
Okay. Make sure you talk with the nurse. Make sure you talk with the doctor before you, right? I don't know if that's legal to do in France.
I'll have to check. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I do know they have ways to test to see if you are allergic to bees that are not where you're not taking a chance.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
That would be something you would have to ask your doctor if you have a regular doctor or a nurse practitioner or something like that.
mhm. Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't take the risk of jumping into it without knowing.
Yeah.
'Cause,
It always surprises me when I used to be a paramedic and I would go out to bee farms because of an emergency or something like that, and you ask them, and it's like, yeah, we didn't know, and then we just hired him, and yeah, it's like, you didn't think to get him tested with his doctor before we had to do emergency procedures. Yeah.
yeah, it's too late by then. I
Well,
understand.
we have a lot of medical capabilities now, so it's not necessarily too late, but I don't know
Yeah,
that I would want to take that chance.
me neither. Me neither.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think I had another question. Yeah, when it comes to wasps, because I've seen sometimes that wasps would be fighting against bees or something like that, or settle close to a hive, and I'm not sure I understanding the reason why.
For very much an opportunistic predator.
Okay.
So if you have another wasp nest within, depending on the species, within 100 meters, they won't settle down. They'll try and go further afield. But near bees, oh yeah, no, they know that there's honey there. They know that there's bees there to capture and eat. Depending on the wasp or the hornet, yeah, there's lots. The biggest part is the same thing. I think when I answered your question about swarming,
Mm-hmm.
prevention.
Oh, okay.
Keep your eyes open. If you see wasps starting to settle and there's a few too many, try to find out, do something about it. For instance, in the summertime, we open up the hive. We have a front entrance on the hive where the bees can go in and out free flow.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see too many wasps hanging around, I'll have an entrance reducer on there so that the bees can protect from the wasps more.
Okay.
So, and then I don't allow, I try to keep the wasps from forming nests within 150 feet of my bee yard. With that said, you can't stop them all. They're a biological system that has their own of survival.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I had a couple ladies, for example, who came to visit the farm, and they were all sad because I was showing them some things, and some bees were getting squished, and they were all sad because one bee died. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon for a bee to die very quickly. They're very easy to kill. So we don't think of one bee. You think of the entire hive, right? So if a wasp or a hornet comes and attacks and takes one bee away, I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about it. I mean, I'm sad. I'd rather have that bee in my own bee hive.
Of course.
But if you see one take away, I wouldn't go out of my way to try and find the nest and kill it right away. It's more about a trend in that direction. You can control them a little bit, but is it an investment of control really worth the effort if there's only a few around? If they kill 10 bees a day because they're eating them, I have 2,000 eggs a day being born every day. So 10 out of 2,000, that's a price you kind of get sad about, but it's okay. The hive is surviving. The queen is doing her job. The bees are doing their job. And you can help them out, for example, like I said, with a bee entrance reducer. But it's not something to worry about too much very often.
I see. I've got another question. Sometimes I would see people, extracting honey with you would have a metallic cylinder, and you're supposed to turn
a hand crank extractor.
Yeah, that's stuff. And sometimes whenever they pour the honey outside, you would see bees caught inside the honey, and there's like a great number of them, like hundreds of them being drowned in the honey.
Yeah.
So how can you prevent that?
Filter.
Oh, okay.
That's all we do. You can't stop bees from going near honey. We usually try to control the amount of bees around the extracting room so that we don't kill too many, because we want the bees working in the field. We don't want them drowning in the honey.
Of course.
But yeah, we just filter everything out, clean it up as much as we can with filters so that it becomes edible for us. You also can eat the bees, but it's a delicacy in some places. I wouldn't eat them, and I've been around them all my life.
No thanks. Yeah.
To each his own, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's all you do, is you try to make sure when you pull the frames in to go to the extracting room, you make sure that you take off as many bees as you can. You can't necessarily get 100% no bees on your frame.
Of course.
But you do try to make sure that you're leaving them outside and behind in the bee yard so that they can go to work and get you more honey, rather than taking them home and then you have to kill them. Right? Because some bee yards are 30, 40 miles away. Well, bees can't find their way home after a couple of miles, up to 5 miles. So a lot of guys, what they'll do if they have a lot of bees in their shop all the time, because so many hives and they're rotating through frames, is they'll put up a beehive outside where the bees will suddenly attach themselves to that beehive. And then after they have enough population in there, they'll add a queen, and now got a free bee yard, a free beehive.
Okay.
But that's from bees all over the place.
Okay. When it comes to the frames, have you ever built yours yourself, or do you order them from a special place or something like that?
When I was about 14, I got contracted from a couple of beekeepers in the local area to build, I don't remember how many frames that summer, 40, 50,000 frames. Instead of going to the park or going to the river to fish, I was hammering nails together and building and stringing frames. It was the last time I did it until I was, 42, 43, when I started back into bees and getting my own beehives here recently. I decided to do traditional, and I bought all the wood, and I bought all the nails, I bought all the and I made my own frames. I made probably about 10,000 frames that time. After that, I decided, nope, my time is worth more. So I started buying
Yeah.
plastic frames.
Okay.
They are pre-sized appropriately for the box. They have the right comb surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
And for the amount they cost compared to the amount it cost me to build, it was actually, I saved money.
Okay.
And then the nice thing about these plastic frames is when they get a little old and start looking really ratty because they might be full of disease, I can scrape all the wax off, use that wax to make candle making wax,
Oh yeah.
and then sanitize the plastic frame, and then take some little bit of wax and paint it on top of that frame, and the bees will reuse it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, whereas the wood ones, you can clean them up,
Mm-hmm.
but diseases can get into the wood.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of guys, after a frame gets so old that you can't use it anymore, they'll actually burn the frame, which is
Okay.
money gone.
Mm.
Whereas I can take the plastic, sanitize them, I can put them in the dishwasher, overheat them, do all the stuff you can do, and then even put some chemical on them. I don't like putting chemicals on them, but and then wash them off and put some wax, and the bees will reuse them. So I get to recycle.
Okay.
Yeah, I recommend that. But doing the traditional way at first might be worth an exercise, because how you build a frame helps you to learn how the bees use a frame.
Mm-hmm.
So build 10, build 20.
Yeah.
Don't build 10,000.
Definitely. Yeah, that's
it's
for
a lot
sure.
of work.
Mm.
I think I got paid 5 or 10 cents per frame back when I was a kid to actually build all those 20,000 frames, which seems like a lot of money, especially to a kid. But the amount of, I think I only built about half of them because I wanted to go fishing. I wanted to go play in the playground. I wanted to go ride the bike. And so, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Well, to be honest, that's pretty much all I had in terms of questions. So,
well, if you ever have any more, don't be
yeah,
scared to send a message or ask away.
sure thing. Well, thanks for taking the time to answer most of my questions.
You bet. I'm just looking at where Paris is and trying to find out compared to where we are. You would be in southern Alberta. So you would be about a month away from fall prep. Right now,
Okay.
I'm in the middle of my fall preparation to get ready to go to bed for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So your climate would be, you get snow in winter there, but your climate would be quite a bit warmer than us here where
definitely.
I am. Yeah. Yeah. Usually we get snow starting October 31. When do you get snow?
It's kind of rare, but when it does happen, it would be towards middle to end of December, January, a little in February, and after that, we are good to go.
So you're probably this Calgary, about a month of winter, some shoulder season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not even that thick. Basically,
yeah,
after
you're
a week
very
or
much
two,
better climate.
it's very temperate.
Yeah. See, we get snow starting. Usually, it always snows on Halloween on October 31, and then it snows November, December, January. It's not so much, but February and March we get a lot of snow, and then April we start to see all the melting. So we get about 5 months of winter.
Oh yeah. We have it really easy compared to you.
Yeah. So yeah, no, don't scared to ever send me a question. I'll be more than happy to help you out. And yeah, make sure you find some books to read.
Yeah. I will have to look into that because I will check on Amazon probably the bestsellers
we'll put some recommendations together in the community for you guys. So anyone watching right now, go to school.com/bees to check that out and find out when our next events are happening. And the next one we're going to be doing is a substituting sugar with honey with Tracy or Queen Bee again. So tune in live to watch it. If you guys are watching the recording, I'm going to end that right now. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you on school.
Bye.
Awesome. Talking to you, Nyman.